Life is all about the choices we make. Some we regret, some we're proud of, and some will haunt us forever. In the end, we are what we choose to be. Some people come into our lives and then change it forever. I remember the day I first met my wife. Everything changed after that. It was a beautiful summer afternoon, and I had just moved to a new city for work. I was in a local coffee shop when she walked in, and my heart skipped a beat. She was around 25, with long brown hair and a bright smile that lit up the room. She was wearing a long black skirt with a red crop top. Her eyes had that shine that I constantly wanted to stare at her. As she ordered her coffee, I couldn't help but overhear her talking about a book I had read and loved. I couldn't resist the opportunity to strike up a conversation with her about it, and before I knew it, we were lost in exchange for what felt like hours. It was like we had known each other for years, even though we had just met. We struck up a conversation, and I knew right away that she was special. We had so much in common, from our love of books to our taste in music. We exchanged numbers and started dating soon after that. It wasn't long before I knew I wanted to spend the rest of my life with her. So I took a leap of faith and proposed to her on a beautiful spring day in the park. She said yes, and it was the happiest moment of my life. I couldn't wait to start our life together and build a family. We got married when she was 27, and I was 37, and I was 30 stay of my life. Our wedding was small and intimate, just our closest family and friends. She did everything by herself, but it was perfect. Looking back, I realize that meeting her was the best thing that ever happened to me. She has been my rock, confidant, and best friend through thick and thin, and even though our journey has had its ups and downs, I wouldn't change a thing. We started building our life together, and before we knew it, we had 2 beautiful children. Our family was our world, and we did everything together. From family movie nights to weekend road trips, we made the most of every moment. We were a close-knit family, and we had much fun together. We enjoyed playing board games, going to the park, and trying out new recipes in the kitchen. We made sure to take lots of photos and videos of our family adventures, so that we could cherish those memories forever. At the age of 40, we had a perfect ideal family. Despite our busy lives, my wife and I always made time for each other. We went on date nights, took long walks in the park, and discussed our hopes and dreams for the future. We had a deep connection, and we trusted each other completely. But as our children grew up, things started to change. My wife started spending more time away from home, attending tennis practice and tournaments. She seemed to be enjoying herself, but I couldn't help feeling a bit neglected. I missed spending time with her and wished she would spend more time with our family. Little did I know that her tennis trainer was becoming more than just a coach to her, and that would lead to the most significant challenge our family would ever face. As my wife's 30th birthday approached, I wanted to make it a special occasion. I planned a surprise birthday party for her at a local restaurant. I invited our closest friends and family, and we had a wonderful time celebrating her milestone birthday. But there was one thing that my wife failed to tell me. She had invited her tennis trainer to the party without informing me beforehand. I didn't even know that they had become such good friends. I felt uncomfortable, but I tried to brush it off and enjoy the evening. My wife was having a great time at the party, and she seemed happy to be surrounded by her loved ones. But I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was off. As the days passed after the birthday party, my wife's behavior became increasingly distant. She seemed distracted and disinterested in our family life. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was going on. So, one night I decided to confront her. I asked her about her relationship with her tennis trainer and if anything was happening between them. She hesitated at first, but then she broke down and confessed everything. When my wife sat me down and revealed, she told me about her love for tennis and her training with the coach for a few years. She said they had started to develop a close friendship and had started hanging out more frequently. At first, it was tennis related, but soon they started going to cafes and restaurants together. She told me she had fallen in love and wanted to be with him. I was devastated, As time went on, my wife began to realize that she had feelings for him. She was confused and didn't know what to do, but the more time they spent together, the more she fell for him. She said that they had started a physical relationship a few months before my wife's 30th birthday and had been seeing each other in secret ever since. My heart felt like it had been ripped out of my chest. I couldn't believe that the woman I loved, the mother of my children, could do something like this. I asked her why she would do this to our family, but she didn't answer well. She just said that she was sorry and that she needed to follow her heart. It was a difficult conversation, but at least I finally had some answers. And sometimes, life gives you answers in the most unexpected way. The days that followed were some of the hardest of my life. I couldn't eat or sleep properly, and I felt like my world was falling apart. I tried to focus on our children, but it was hard to be around my wife without feeling hurt and angry. Eventually, we decided that a divorce was the best option. We didn't want to stay together for the sake of our children if we couldn't be happy together. It was a painful process, but we both agreed to try and make it as amicable as possible. As I sat there, alone in my living room, my mind began to wander through the memories of our life together. I remembered our first family vacation to the beach, where our children were building sandcastles, and my wife and I held hands and walked along the shoreline. I remembered the time we spent decorating our first home together, picking out the perfect furniture and color schemes that would make it feel like our own little sanctuary. I remembered the holidays with our families, where we would all come together and share laughter, food, and memories. But as much as those memories warmed my heart, they also made me realize how much had changed. My wife and I had drifted apart, and it seemed like we were living separate lives. I didn't know how to fix it or if it was possible, but one thing was sure: I loved my wife, and I would do anything to protect my family. Another memory that stands out is when we decided to renovate our house. We spent months planning, designing, which was a lot of hard work, but we did it together, and the result was terrific. We had turned our house into a home with our personal touches and style. Despite our challenges, we always found a way to become more assertive on the other side. We were a team, and we supported each other through thick and thin. Our love for each other and our family was unbreakable. After the divorce, life became very different. I was living alone, taking care of my children on my own. I had much time to think about what went wrong in my marriage and what I could have done differently. But all that introspection stopped one day when I received a call from my ex-wife. She was crying on the other end of the line, and it took me a few moments to understand what she was saying. Through her sobs, she told me that her current boyfriend, the tennis trainer, had beaten her and our children. She was in a state of shock and didn't know what to do. She begged me to help her, and I knew I had to act quickly. I got into my car and drove straight to her place and informed the police on my way to her place. I reached there before the police and barged into the house. When I arrived, I could see the damage that had been done. The furniture was overturned, and there were broken dishes and glass everywhere. As I approached the house, I saw it was in disarray. I quickly parked my car and ran towards the door. My ex-wife had a black eye, and our children were bruised and scared. I felt a surge of anger rises in me, and I punched him on the face and quickly knocked him down to avoid any further violence. I took them out of the house and called the police again. He opened his eyes few minutes after the police arrived. Police investigated the whole scenario and took him away. I was absolutely furious. Just because of her, my children were exposed to this devastating harassment. It was completely unacceptable, and just because of his boyfriend, my children's security and well-being were at risk. I told her I wouldn't allow our children to be around him anymore, and she didn't object. She was sobbing uncontrollably, and I could see the fear in her eyes. I didn't say anything else. I just took my children and left. The drive back home was a blur. My mind was racing, and I couldn't believe what had happened. I knew things would never be the same again, but I was determined to keep my children safe. When we got home, I put them to bed and sat down to gather my thoughts. After the incident, I was emotionally and physically exhausted I was angry at my wife for betraying our marriage and putting our children in danger, but I was also relieved that I was able to protect them and make sure they were safe. I didn't know the future for me and my family, but I knew I had to stay vital for my children. They were my priority, and I would do anything to protect them. As I lay in bed that night, I couldn't stop thinking about the look on my wife's face when she realized that she had made a terrible mistake. It was a painful reminder that our choices have consequences, which can sometimes be devastating. In the coming days, I focused on my children and ensuring they were okay. We talked about what had happened, and I reassured them that I would always be there for them. I made sure they knew that they were loved and that nothing could ever change that. As for my ex-wife, we had limited communication, only talking when necessary about our children's well-being. It was clear that our relationship had been irreparably damaged. Looking back on everything that happened, I realized that life is unpredictable and full of challenges. We can never know the future, but we can control how we react. And for me, the most important thing was always going to be protecting my family and making sure they were safe and happy. As time passed, I focused on healing and moving on from the pain my ex-wife had caused me. I started to date again and found a new partner who supported me through everything. I was happy again and knew I had made the right decision for myself and my children. But then, one day, I received a call from a familiar friend who told me something that shook me to my core. They had recently seen my ex-wife, and she had confided in them that she regretted everything she had done. She realized she had made the most significant life mistake by leaving me for her tennis coach. At first, I was shocked and didn't know what to say. Part of me was angry and hurt that she had put me and our family through so much pain, but another part of me felt a sense of closure and relief. It was clear that she finally understood the gravity of her actions and their impact on everyone involved. I didn't know what to do with this information at first. Should I reach out to my wife? Should I forgive her? Ultimately, I decided it was better to leave the past behind and focus on the present. I was happy in my new life and didn't want to reopen old wounds. But knowing that my ex-wife regretted her choices gave me a sense of peace and closure. It was a reminder that life is unpredictable and that we never know what the future holds. All we can do is make the best choices and hope they lead us to a happy and fulfilling life. Throughout the whole ordeal, our children were our top priority. We shielded them from as much drama as possible and focused on providing a stable and loving environment. Despite everything, we still spent quality time with them, creating new memories and cherishing the old ones. And as they grew up, we watched them become independent and successful in their ways, proud parents to the end. In the end, I realized that the choices we make in life not only affect us, but also those we love. It's up to us to make the right ones, to own up to our mistakes. Life may be unpredictable, but with the right mindset and support system, we can overcome any obstacle. Life is full of twists and turns, and we never know what might be waiting for us around the corner. But one thing is for sure, all that glitter is not gold. We may be attracted to the shiny things in life, but it's essential to look beyond the surface and make wise choices. It's always better to make smart choices rather than regretting later in life. The most important conclusion I derive from this story is to subscribe to this channel for more interesting stories in the future. Let me know what you thought about the author in the comments. Was his revenge too weak or too brutal?